maybe for us as bloggers, also edublogging as a business, mainstream and tech and business blogs jumping on the bandwagon of hijacking the space, maybe.
Right.
And we can share some of our experiences, maybe, and what we had to learn in 2012 as edubloggers. Yeah.
I think that there's that is it's very interesting that a lot of companies, private companies, and content companies as well, particularly private companies, are choosing to now use content for lead generation, and it's sort of the de facto marketing, and many of them actually starting to produce some really good content. Dell is a great example of this. They've launched a few sites that are outstanding, and they're doing wonderful things both in education and in the enterprise in terms of great writing, engaging stories, working with an audience. And, in some cases it's better than sort of these independent outlets. Not that anything's independent anymore, but there's good stuff. There's also a ton of junk. And so getting yourself heard above the noise and outside the echo chamber is becoming a real challenge for writers and for educators who want to share their best practices. It's becoming a little bit more about lead gen and a little less about sharing, I think. But I have a feeling in 2013 we may see that sort of shake out a little bit as people learn who is giving us good stuff and things that we can use, and who is just trying to improve their SEO.
I think you're spot on there. I think what we are going to see in 2013 is definitely many more efforts and, as you said, good stories in this type of content marketing. Big companies and also sort of either partnering, supporting in one way or the other like more education-focused outlets. What we see, the maybe bubblegum approach, and you said staying afloat, and what the average consumer, even in the education space, seems to consume is those 50+ tools of XYZ. What I have my difficulties with, but admittedly, yes, they are easily to digest, whether, or at least many people push retweet immediately. I am not sure whether they even bother to look over the stories or those 50 tools in my example. But yeah, it's easy, it's nicely digestible, and of course far easier than dedicating even 15 or 20 minutes of your valuable time in reading an analytics piece or somebody really defending an opinion or something like this. So I definitely see a lot of this stuff. Whether it's here to stay, I am not sure. As you said, much more is being produced. On the other hand, I don't know if there are really that many original creators. I see a lot of curation going on, and then also, and also in many of the tech blogs, original like edu tech blogs, so not the general blogs. But I see a lot of aggregation, but not creation. And I don't know. Do you think we, as blogger or journalists, maybe in your case, should we focus more on like niche content, or do you think we should go broad? What's your strategy for 2013, as we need one? I feel.
Yeah, no, I do think we need one. I think that part of the issue is that it's easy for us as we sort of live, eat, and breathe this stuff to expect people to have a fairly in-depth bit of background knowledge. So, but if we write something that is deep and thoughtful and really probes an issue, there's very few people out there, especially teachers who are busy teaching, who have any sort of background understanding of what we're talking about. On the other hand, if they can read that, hey, 25 things I can do with my class right now, cool.
Yeah.
And that's, I think it's not so much a matter of them seeing it as bubblegum. I think it gets read because it's what's accessible. and easily understood by someone who is not terribly savvy, who's just really trying to get a little bit deeper into this idea of bringing technology into the classroom. You have we can write things that are of great use for the IT folks in education or for people founding businesses in edtech, but they'll read the deeper content. But the millions of teachers out there, not a lot of them are going to dive that deep because they simply don't have the time or the background. And for myself, I think there's enough people who are talking about the 25 tools or the sort of simple classroom practices that I can dig a little deeper. And my thinking for 2013 is that it's going to be less of a focus on hardware and a much greater focus on big data, analytics. How are we going to actually start putting these tools into teachers' hands and making them really useful for teachers? I think that's something that teachers, I get emails a lot about people who just don't. They say big data. There's stuff going on here. There's some tools. We've got our SIS. We have our LMS, but it never all comes together. What do we do? That's where I'd like to take my focus. And I think this idea of a niche, finding something where you have a core audience who needs to know what you have to say and not just sort of an echo chamber, I think that's pretty important.
So we basically should simply accept the fact that our audience is probably core and not very large, and leave the other stuff to other people who make a very good job and successful job in covering such type of things. What do you think?
Exactly.
What do you think about those first things I see about people coming in education and building a blog, newsletter, whatever system and getting funded for that?
I think you're going to see that happen less and less. 2012, we started talking about this. If what you did had anything relating to do with education and technology in it, you probably got some money for it. You maybe found a corporate sponsor, you maybe found someone to actually fund what you do. I think we're going to see a bit less of that, and I think just being able to, any Tom, Dick, and Harry being able to step into this industry, if you will, I think that's going to be a lot harder for folks because it's saturated now, and you need to be putting something out there that people need to know. So I don't think it's going to be quite the free-for-all that it has been.
So you would say that 2012 was sort of the peak of whether we want to call it a hype in education hype or not, but that is going to get calmer in 2013 again. So some of the people might drop out when they are not in for their love or passion for education. Do you think we are getting back to a more normal status?
I think so, and I think we'll also see again some of this dominance from corporate content, and I don't mean that in a bad way. When people have a solution, then they need to talk about that solution. So if a company, SAS or Pearson or whomever, starts coming up with some great tools in a particular area, well, they need to get people thinking about those tools and how to use them. And that's some pretty niche content right there. But it's going to get circulated because they're going to have the SEO and the mojo to make it happen. That's not a bad thing. And I think we'll see more of that, which again leaves less room for Mrs. Smith's 5th grade classroom to talk about, 5th grade stuff.